Moderna, and they found Pfizer's about 90% and Moderna's about 96. So, they're all showing these small differences between the two.
And then one of the other studies that we saw had to do with antibodies and how Moderna produced, I guess, 1/3 to 1/2 more than Pfizer did. Is that something like that?
That sounds like a huge difference when you hear about it, 1/3 to 1/2, but these are not differences in how effective the vaccines are. These are just differences in what we call antibody titers. And just for comparison, just among a regular population, there can be 100-fold difference between people. So a 2 to 3-fold difference is nothing at all and really doesn't have much of a clinical impact. The scientists are not really worried about that. It seems more like over the long term, we know that antibodies wane, and it's possible that Pfizer's wane a little bit more than Moderna.
Yeah, so exactly. Don't freak out if you got Pfizer, if you're still you're still doing very well. But that's kind of, just human nature to compare and contrast, and even in your own head. And that's what we were doing with Johnson & Johnson as well, with all that preliminary data that showed it wasn't as effective as the mRNA vaccine. We've seen Johnson & Johnson come out with some other research saying that a second dose, a booster shot, kind of boosted up to what those mRNA vaccines do. So this is all in keeping, they're all still very, very effective. So what does this do for that conversation about booster shots?
That's interesting. I think, I've just been listening to the CDC advisors debate all day about which boosters people should get and which people should get them and when. And it's a little bit confusing because right now Pfizer is the one that is up on the table for the FDA to decide about. But, it'd be very tricky for them to recommend that only people who got Pfizer before should get Pfizer. Well, what about all the people who got Moderna? So it's not very clear what's going to happen. It's possible they'll just delay a decision until the Moderna one is also available. Moderna's already applied. It's just the conversation is taking longer. So I don't want anybody to come away with the impression that Moderna is so much better that they should all just go get the Moderna booster. I don't think that's what these data are showing at all. It's just documenting, for example, there are differences in how much of the dose that each vaccine delivered. Pfizer used 30 micrograms and Moderna used 100. Both companies were just guessing at the start of the pandemic. So that may be one of the differences. And Pfizer spaced its 2 doses by 3 weeks. Moderna spaced it by 4. And there's some evidence that it might be better to have those 2 doses staggered longer, which we couldn't do. Again, at the start of the pandemic, we just did not have that luxury. But now that we have a little bit more time, there are some studies showing that it might be better to have the second dose come later. So there's a bunch of things here that we need to think through before we decide what to do with boosters. And I think that's what the FDA and the CDC are really spending time on right now.
Apoorva Mandavilli, reporter at the New York Times, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
It didn't take much time for the first test to come through on the Texas abortion law. A San Antonio physician named Alan Braid recently wrote an op-ed admitting that he performed an abortion despite the new law. What came next were actually 2 lawsuits against him, with neither of the plaintiffs having a particular objection to the abortion, but rather looking to challenge the law. For more on why these 2 are suing, we'll speak to Elizabeth Spindell, Texas reporter for the Wall Street Journal.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, the Texas law was designed so that the state is not the architect of enforcement. It essentially deputizes private citizens, either in Texas or anywhere else, to sue anyone they think might have assisted in abortion and potentially earn, $10,000 or more. And so after this editorial was public, you had 2 different former attorneys in different states file lawsuits who are not affiliated with any pro or anti-abortion groups and are just sort of random dudes.
Neither of them really object to the abortion in any particular way. Like you said, they're kind of random guys, but they want to test the law more, it seems like.
That's definitely correct. One of them is a former attorney up in Chicago, and he essentially said that he thinks it's hypocritical of the GOP to try to control people's bodies. He said he doesn't believe in, some of the pandemic things like wearing a mask, being forced to get a vaccine. and he sees this law as sort of hypocritical to that vision. And then the other man is a former attorney in Arkansas who's actually serving a 15-year sentence for tax fraud. So he's on home confinement, and he said he read about the case and it made him mad because he thought it was sort of an end run, were his words, around established law. And he figured, if someone was going to make $10,000, it might as well be him. Or if not, he wanted the court to sort out whether this law was legitimate or not.
Yeah, the quote from him on that one, as you just said, if someone's going to get that $10,000, it might as well be me who gets that money. So, I mean, you can kind of see where the motivation there is a little bit. But as I mentioned, first test of the law, what would propel this, I guess you could say, to higher courts, up to the Supreme Court, where it would ultimately really have to get hashed out to kind of come down on this? I mean, could both of these things get thrown out? The doctor already admitted that he did perform the abortion.
I think there are a lot of questions at this point because these are the first cases that we've seen under this law, so I don't know if we know super well what this level of proof is going to be for establishing what abortion did occur, and then which of these cases will move forward. If they both continue to move forward, both of these gentlemen are representing themselves. They don't have more established attorneys handling them right now. And so because we haven't seen this before, it's hard to know exactly how these cases are going to move, but it does seem to be this sort of interesting situation of the law working almost the way it was designed to work, with just sort of Joe Citizen suing someone he thinks might have performed an abortion.
I mean, you got some statements from the Texas Right to Life organization, from their legislative director. They haven't sued anybody yet, and they're kind of even being cautious with this also. They said, we don't really know all the details of this particular case, when exactly was the abortion performed, if they hadn't detected a heartbeat yet. So even, some of these anti-abortion groups are being really careful with this. Because as I mentioned, the ultimate goal of all these legal challenges is going to be to get it to the Supreme Court to put like a final decision on all of this.
Yes, and usually when you have that happen, there's a sort of test case that people are looking for, and I think the lawsuits that we saw filed yesterday are not necessarily the test cases that either side was looking for.
All right, well, we'll see what happens with all this. Who knows where this goes, but as you mentioned, people are looking for that test case and to see what can happen. Elizabeth Spindell, Texas reporter at the Wall Street Journal, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition on KFI AM 640. When we come back, we'll talk about how Facebook's own research shows that Instagram can be toxic to teen girls.
Another mortgage tip from Own It. Have you refinanced in the last couple of years and would like to take advantage of today's lower rate, but you don't want to start your mortgage clock all over again? Problem solved. Own It's roll-down program offers you a new loan at today's low interest rates with no closing costs and simply rolls the remaining term down for qualified borrowers. For example, say you have a 3.25% mortgage with 27 years left. Today, Own It will roll your balance and term down to a 27-year loan with a 2.625% APR. The result? A lower payment with the same number of payments left. So roll it down with Own It. No balance or term increase, just a payment decrease. That's a great mortgage tip. Call 855-5-OWN-IT to roll down your mortgage payment.
NMLS 2611, licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation and the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Subject to credit approval. Call 833-852-6464 for terms and conditions. Equal housing lender.
That's 855-5-OWN-IT or OWN-IT.com.
Being in the Army National Guard is about more than serving your country. It's about being there for your community when your neighbors need you most. The Army National Guard makes college affordable, and serving part-time can help you graduate debt-free. Do you want to stay close to friends and family? The Guard allows you to serve close to home. Serving part-time in the Army National Guard lets you have the life you want. Learn more by visiting nationalguard.com.
Sponsored by the California Army National Guard. Aired by the California Broadcasters Association and this station.
This is my business. I started it, and my hard work made it successful. We survived the last year, and things are starting to look better, but now hard work alone isn't enough. I need cash to hire some people and buy supplies. Loan Me Business is for people like you. We can loan your business from $6,000 up to $250,000. And we understand that you don't need the cash soon. You need it now. And if your credit isn't perfect, that's okay. Apply today and you can have the money in your account tomorrow. Loan Me Business loans have longer terms, keeping your monthly payments low and manageable. You can even pay the loan off early to control your costs with no prepayment penalties. That sounds great. Simply go to loanmebiz.com to get started. That's loanmebiz.com or call 844-3-LOAN-ME.
Not all applicants will qualify. Approval and terms subject to credit standards. See loanme.com for details. Loans made pursuant to California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation Law License 603K061.
That's 844-3-LOAN-ME or loanmebiz.com.
1877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids.
Donate your car today with 1877 Cars for Kids. We're a recognized 501c3 charity organization, so you'll receive a maximum tax deduction. What's more, you'll receive a vacation voucher of 3 days and 2 nights. Also on the web at carsforkids.com.
1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today. Now accepting donations of land, homes, buildings, or any kind of real estate.
Our 2021 iHeartRadio Music Festival, the ultimate once-in-a-lifetime music event, is coming to the CW. The biggest stars from all genres of music share one stage.
Billie Eilish,
Cheap Trick,
Coldplay, Darius Rucker,
Dua Lipa,
J. Cole, Journey, Khalid, Lil Baby, Nelly, Bam Hunt, Weezer, with special guests Laura Doherty Line, Walker Hayes, performances you've never seen before and will never see again.
the 2021 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Watch next Saturday and Sunday at 8 p.m. on KPLA 5, the CW.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded. Drink plenty of water. Oh, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Just advised, drink plenty of oil.
Well, I'm glad he did, because I might have forgotten and I would have dried up and died.
With you, that could happen.
I hate water.
Doesn't taste like anything.
That's wine.
John and Ken. That's weird. There's something wrong with you, man. Weekdays, 2 to 6 on KFI.
You do scratch offs, fella? You don't strike me as a woman who's in there scratching off with her coffee and her donut every morning.
The Tim Conway Jr. Show. Weeknights at 6 on KFI.
I know the weight of the world seems to rest on your shoulders, and sometimes life seems like it's filled only with confusion and chaos. But I assure you, I have a plan for you.
The Jesus Christ Show. This morning at 6 on KFI. AM 640.
More stimulating talk.
This is KFI AM 640, heard everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. I'm Oscar Ramirez, and you're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition. Finally, for this week, Facebook knows that Instagram can be a problem for teen girls. According to their own internal research, 32% of teen girls say that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. And while there are many social media platforms out there, some of these problems were specific to Instagram. TikTok focuses on video and performance. Snapchat keeps the focus on the face with fun filters. But Instagram centers on the body and lifestyle, making the social comparisons worse. For more on Facebook's own research showing that this has been a problem, we'll speak to Georgia Wells, reporter at the Wall Street Journal.
So for the past 3 years, Facebook has been conducting studies into how Instagram affects users, and repeatedly, these Instagram researchers have found that Instagram is harmful for a sizable percentage of them. Most notably, teen girls, which you mentioned. Like, for example, a quote from one of the documents is 32% of teen girls said that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. Or another one is, we make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls. And this was a slide summarizing research of teen girls who had experienced these issues. So their findings are clearly quite stark.
Yeah, and those quotes that you're saying they're taken from slides from actual research presentations that they are showing to people internally at Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. So Facebook has researchers on staff who specialize in how to run these both qualitative and quantitative studies, and they've conducted these, and what we're looking at is documents from when they were sharing their findings internally with their own colleagues.
Now, one of the things to get off the table real quick before we get started, and a lot of this, as I mentioned, is coming from this research. You say, well, okay, Instagram isn't culpable in all of this. You know, there's a lot of other social media platforms out there. TikTok is very popular with the younger crowd right now. Snapchat, all this stuff. But a lot of this stuff is specific to Instagram because of the way all the platforms play out. TikTok is mostly video, so it's performance-based, and Instagram is very specific photos. So explain that a little bit.
Specifically, the mechanism by which kind of a lot of these teen girls appear to be affected is this thing called negative social comparison. And that's this dynamic where if someone's kind of scrolling through an app and looking at other users, rather than just kind of this kind of stance of like, oh, I'm learning about other people and what they're up to, they tend to approach it from the stance of, well, how do I stack up next to these other people in terms of beauty or wealth or success or, you know, their beautiful families or relationships or whatever. And in the research, the researchers say that they found that this issue of negative social comparison is worse on Instagram than other platforms. So specifically on TikTok, users are sheltered in some part because so much of the content on TikTok is performance-based. It's not taken to mean real life. And on Snapchat, people often use, like, it focuses on the face, but also people often use these filters that tend to be more fun or like playful than beautifying, like, you know, like turn your face into that of like a puppy dog or something. The reason all this matters is that in their documents they say literally social comparison is worse on Instagram than other platforms is in the past when I've spoken with executives at Facebook about like, hey, how does your platform affect teen mental health? Often the responses are couched in this language that they've used around like, hey, it's not just a Facebook problem. This is like a social media problem. And here we're seeing literally internally they're saying, oh no, it's worse on our platform.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're starting to see some of this research internally from Facebook about their product Instagram. In public, though, when Mark Zuckerberg and other officials are talking about Facebook, when they're talking about Instagram, what are they saying when it comes to these issues of mental health?
This past March, if you recall, there was a hearing on Capitol Hill, and Mark Zuckerberg was called along with the CEOs of other companies to talk about their platforms in general. And one of the questions that one of the senators asked Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg was about like children and mental health. And his response at the time was, quote, the research that we've seen is that using social apps to connect with other people can have positive mental health benefits, end quote. So, yeah, technically
pretty broad right there.
yeah, I mean, right, exactly. Like, sure, that's a technical truth, right?
Yeah,
I don't think it's disputing. But
if you put it in the context of people being lonely, needing some friends, and reaching out to others, yeah, maybe social media and Instagram can be very beneficial in that way. But you know, when it comes to these specific things of mental health and body issues, you know, the evidence points to the contrary.
exactly, like throughout the course of all of this reporting, Facebook's research on Instagram seems to represent one of the clearest gaps we've ever seen, kind of between Facebook's understanding of itself and the public position that they're taking. And Mark Zuckerberg's quote, I think, is a really strong example of that.
And they know, you know, they were losing a lot of younger users on Facebook, and Instagram came up, was already kind of a hit when they purchased Instagram, and they saw that as the future for them, a way to really still connect with younger people and keep growing the platform there. So, you know, the follow-through for them has not been there. You know, they're seeing these problems pop up, but they're doing little to address it. It's tough, right? You want to keep as many people on the platform while trying to address some of these issues.
Facebook's own data now show that, like, Instagram's toxic for many teenage girls, but expanding their user base of these young users is really vital to their more than, like, $100 billion in annual revenue, and they don't want to jeopardize their engagement with the platform.
How do they conduct some of this research? Because they're doing a lot of stuff, focus groups, I mean, connecting with people directly on the app. So just for the purposes of, you know, bolstering their own research, right? How do they conduct a lot of this?
Yeah, they do focus groups like you mentioned. In the past couple of years, they started doing these really huge, like, large-scale surveys of tens of thousands, and in one case that I'm aware of, more than 100,000 users from around the world. And then what they'll do is they'll compare these users' responses with the logs of what these users actually did or viewed on Instagram. It's really powerful research and data in terms of just kind of this like quest for people around the world to learn more about how these platforms affect people. Because in the past, outside researchers, even if they've wanted to do this kind of thing, they haven't had access to this kind of data. It's really powerful research.
So some of this research obviously points in this negative direction. To be fair, some of the research also says that it isn't harmful for all users. Some teenagers can, you know, avoid this kind of negative social comparison, that they can manage it at least and see it for what it's worth.
Just to bolster that point, also, like, negative social comparison is not new. Like, it's been around forever. You know, when I was a kid, there was a lot of concern about what Photoshop in, like, fashion magazines, how that would affect young people. But now what's new is the amount of time young people, especially teen girls, are spending on these platforms, and kind of the rabbit hole behavior of just getting sucked in and having a hard time using it and feeling like they're going to miss out from their friends if they put it down.
So what is Facebook and Instagram doing to remedy some of these things? Because as we mentioned, publicly they're not necessarily acknowledging a lot of their own internal research, but they are doing certain things. I remember, some time back they were trying to play around with removing the likes or the counts of likes that you get on pictures, things like that. And I guess someone else had suggested internally, let's give people less of celebrities and lifestyles and more people closely associated with users.
Yeah, the removing the like count is kind of a head scratcher, because what happened was they heard from teams over and over again that the like count caused this anxiety and pressure for them around posting. And so they experimented with removing the like count, and they found it didn't actually seem to improve user happiness when they removed the like count. So they did roll out the option for users to remove like counts on their accounts. Earlier this month, we spoke with Adam Nasseri, he's the head of Instagram, about what they're working on. And he cautions that he doesn't think that there are any silver bullets to really fix this easily, but he's cautiously optimistic about some work they're doing to show nudges to users who might be going down dangerous paths of content to try and kind of steer them back to healthier content, and also potentially nudges around reminding users to take breaks. And so he said it was too early to tell what kind of impact they'd have, but those are two that I think would be really worth people keeping an eye on.
Georgia Wells, reporter at the Wall Street Journal, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition. You can catch a fresh episode of the podcast every morning, Monday through Friday on iHeartRadio. You can also follow us on social media at Daily Dive Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. Stay tuned for the Jesus Christ Show next, but first, into the newsroom. This is KFI Am 640, more stimulating talk.
Gary and Shannon, weekdays. KFI.
KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
Man killed on Huntington Beach Pier. I'm Layla Muhammad, live from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. A man with a gun has been shot and killed by police in Huntington Beach. The shooting happened around 3:15 yesterday afternoon on the pier near the U.S. Open of Surfing event. Police got several calls about the man with the gun. When they arrived, they said the guy refused to put down the gun, and eventually that led to an officer-involved shooting. COVID-19 booster shots are being given out to some adults in the U.S. The CDC director has signed off on a booster dose for older adults, but D.C.-based primary care physician Dr. Kavita Patel says others are eligible too.
If you're under 65 and you've got chronic conditions and you take medications for things like diabetes, epilepsy, any hypertension, high blood pressure, or you're obese, you are also likely to qualify.
Only people who have already been fully vaccinated with Pfizer's 2-dose COVID vaccine are eligible for a booster shot, which must also be Pfizer. That does not include millions of people who were vaccinated with either Moderna or Johnson & Johnson. Those people will have to wait. 3 people have died on an Amtrak train in Montana. The train runs from Seattle to Chicago. It derailed yesterday in Montana. 147 passengers and 13 crew members were on board that train. Images from the scene show the train on its side. 500 female athletes have stood together for a woman's right to choose.
The current and former athletes have sent a message to the Supreme Court urging justices to reject an abortion law in Mississippi that prohibits abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy.
If we had an unplanned pregnancy, this could end our Olympic dreams and athletic careers.
Gold medal winning Olympic fencer Lee Kiefer says it needs to be a woman's choice.
I believe women should have control over their bodies and be able to make these decisions.
Kiefer was joined by U.S. women's soccer star Megan Rapinoe. The Supreme Court will hear oral arguments on the Mississippi law in December. Amy King, KFI News.
The Republican-sponsored audit of the 2020 election in Arizona's most populous county shows President Biden beat former President Trump. It's the same as official results and recounts showed last year. Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs says the results come as no surprise.
This whole thing has just been a sham. We knew that. And nobody should take it seriously.
The company conducting the hand recount of more than 2 million ballots in Maricopa County actually says Trump lost by a wider margin than the county's official election results. Let's get to a crash on the 405 in the Sepulveda Pass.
It's going to be on the northbound side, right on Mulholland Drive. This one still has the two right lanes blocked as this crash investigation goes on. In Redlands on the 10 westbound at the 210, crash coming in here has the three right lanes blocked. And look out in the West Covina area on the 10 eastbound at Vincent. A wreck here still blocked in the carpool lane. KFI in the Sky helps get you there faster. I'm Jonathan White.
I'll warm up on the way. I'll tell you when next.
Why won't a plumber just tell me what it costs to unclog my drain over the phone? Is it that complicated?
We do a crash in the Sepulveda.
No, it's not. It makes no sense at all. They obviously have a price.
Whoa, you've got a nice aroma. Who are you?
Mike Diamond, the smell good plumber.
Will you tell me how much to unstop my drain?
$99.
But you haven't seen it.
Don't need to. Doesn't matter if it's a kitchen sink or a mainline sewer stoppage. The smell good plumbers at Mike Diamond will unclog almost any drain for $99.
Almost.
Yeah, there are a few exceptions, but you can read all about them on our website before you call. Just go to thesmellgoodplumber.com.
Wow, you're like up front and everything. I just called a guy named Bubba who wouldn't tell me anything.
No Bubba's here, ma'am. Just professional plumbers who show up on time, smell good, and unclog drains for $99.
Call us, 1-800-446-MIKE.
Contractor license number 399170.
The Delta variant is making COVID-19 spread faster and more easily. Variants can be more contagious, aggressive, and deadly. But we know vaccines work. Vaccinated Californians have greater protection against serious illness, hospitalization, and death. We can help stop the spread and end this pandemic. Get vaccinated and wear a mask when it can protect you and others. Find a vaccine near you at myturn.ca.gov. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
I want to break free. Ready to break free? Make your dream vacation a reality with Norwegian Cruise Line and sail to the Caribbean, Europe, and more. With our leading health and safety program, you can cruise with the ultimate freedom and confidence. Book today and enjoy 30% off all cruises, free open bar, and much more. Visit ncl.com, call your travel advisor, or 1-888-NCL-CRUISE. Offer ends soon. Norwegian Cruise Line. Sail safe, feel free. Ships registry to Bahamas and USA. Restrictions apply.
If your family depends on your income and something happened to you, what would happen to them? You need life insurance, and SelectQuote can help you get it at a price you can afford.
SelectQuote found Jacob, 40, who's in excellent health, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for only $19 a month.
Not in perfect health? Don't worry.
SelectQuote found Tanya, 40, who has type 2 diabetes, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for only $32 a month.
We shop companies like Protective, Prudential, American General, and others to find you the company with the best rates. Give your family the security they need at a price you can afford. For your free quote, call 1-800-582-8080. That's 1-800-582-8080. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-582-8080. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policies at selectquote.com/commercials. Your premium could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
Southland weather from KFI. Partly cloudy today with highs in the mid to upper 60s along the coast, mid 70s in Metro LA and inland OC, low 80s for the valleys and the IE, low 90s in the high desert, and low 70s with a chance for storms in the mountains. We are warming up by Thursday, which we will have temperatures back in the upper 80s for some inland areas by Thursday. Right now, 63 in Yorba Linda, 62 in San Clemente, 62 in Venice Beach, 61 in Reseda. We lead local, live from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. I'm Layla Muhammad.
The following is a pre-recorded program. Over 2,000 years ago, I walked this earth. Teaching, healing, inspiring, and preparing to make the ultimate sacrifice. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. What if
voice to voice, and you could ask me anything. You are listening to the Jesus Christ Show. Show. I am your holy host. Happy to be with you this Sunday, as I am with you every single Sunday right here, answering your questions and talking about things that truly matter in life. And yes, of course, the afterlife. I encourage you to be bold and brave and go to the phone with your theology question or life situation question anywhere in the U.S. of A. Dial 800-520-1534. That's 800-520-1534. Today, this idea that rattles around in my head to share with you has to do with procrastination. I saw a t-shirt the other day that said, "Procrastinators Unite tomorrow." And maybe you come across these t-shirts or bumper stickers that talk about procrastination. There's another one that says, top 10 reasons I procrastinate. Number 1. Saw a sign that said citizen of procrastination. Or maybe somewhere in the garage there's a sign that says king of unfinished projects. I realize that it's an easy point of humor. It's good to own your flaws, to own those places where you are looking to perfect, to get better at. But I want you to think about it from a little different angle. James 4:14 says that you don't know what's going to happen to you tomorrow. For what is life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. Procrastination, putting that off which you should do today, only delays the inevitable. Now, saying that means that you are someone who wants to succeed, progress, help, inspire, all these things in life. That's what being human is.
Sorry.
But if you don't practice that daily, if you don't find ways daily to participate in life, to help someone, to care for someone, to share insight, there's no guarantee you'll be able to do it tomorrow. You get in a mindset that always says, well, you know what, I can do that tomorrow. You may never get the opportunity. And that's what really births regret. Regret is truly not getting done today what should be done today. Stepping out of those comfort zones, stepping out of the schedule that you've built, that is really just a schedule of protection for laziness, oftentimes. There are those who schedule their day so that they can get as much done as they possibly can. And there are those that go forth and schedule their day to kind of protect their downtime. And everyone needs downtime. But if that becomes the predominant part of your day, You're missing out on a huge portion of who you are and what I designed you for. To interact with one another. And to inspire. And Scripture is quick to point out that you don't know how long you're going to be here. There's this assumption that there's a guarantee on a certain amount of years. And there's just not. Therefore, the things that often are uncomfortable, telling someone you love them, how many times have you been to a funeral? Usually when someone dies young. And inevitably someone will stand up and go, you know what? Tell the people you care about that you love them. Do it together. Because I never told so-and-so, or I never really let them know how I felt. The reason why that's echoed all the time is because people hear it and don't do it. And without the application of that, we're not. It means nothing. And what James is reminding me here in chapter 4, verse 14 is that life will go by